Ladies and gentlemen, in a world where self-centeredness, ego, and pride often cloud our vision, there are individuals who stand as examples of a life led by ego narcissists. Today I'm here to talk about how God, in his infinite mercy, deals with such people. And trust me, it's not the way the world might. First of all, let's talk about acknowledging the reality. Narcissists live in a world where they believe the sun rises and sets based on their actions. They hold a mirror up to themselves and see perfection. But God, he sees beyond that. He sees the brokenness, the insecurity, and the arrogance that is often mistaken for power. But here's the thing, God doesn't abandon them. He extends divine patience and guidance. You see, God is in no rush. He's not rushing to tear down a person, to cast judgment, or to punish. No, God patiently works in the background, always whispering, always providing opportunities for transformation. The narcissist is given time to open their eyes, time to reflect, and time to humble themselves. And when that narcissist refuses to see, when they turn a blind eye to the gentle calls, God allows consequences to unfold. Let me make it clear. These aren't punishments. These are lessons. A narcissist may think they can manipulate their world, bend it to their will, but God's law remains unshaken. The very actions they use to build their walls will eventually come crumbling down, not by force, but by divine consequence. The ego, the pride, they will be confronted by the consequences of a self-absorbed life. Now, let me tell you something, God doesn't stop there. In his wisdom, he offers something no human can comprehend: restoration through grace. Despite all the wrong, despite all the pride, God doesn't forsake them. He doesn't write anyone off. He opens the door to redemption. The same mercy that he extends to the righteous, he extends to the narcissist, giving them a second chance to heal, to grow, and to recognize that true power lies in humility, not in domination. Finally, God always teaches them about real love. A narcissist may see relationships as tools to feed their ego. They may push others aside in their pursuit of admiration. But God shows them what love really looks like: sacrificial, unconditional, and selfless. God teaches them that love is not about being adored, but about giving, forgiving, and truly seeing others as valuable. So to the narcissists of the world, to those who believe that they are untouchable, to those who live their lives wrapped in pride, know this: God doesn't destroy, he restores. He doesn't punish, he teaches. And as long as there is breath in your lungs, there's still time. Time to change, time to humble yourself, and time to finally see the beauty in others. You can take that mirror, the one you've held up all your life, and look beyond yourself, because the world is much bigger than your reflection. Thank you. Narcissism is a deep, inward-looking condition that revolves around the idea that the world exists for one's own gratification. It manifests in a person's obsession with themselves, an inflated sense of their own importance, a lack of empathy for others, and a constant need for validation and admiration. Narcissists tend to see themselves as exceptional, deserving of special treatment, and often expect others to bow to their perceived superiority. This type of personality often hides a more profound insecurity and vulnerability. Beneath the surface of arrogance lies a fear of being irrelevant or unworthy, a desperate need to feel seen and important. But this behavior is not just a personality flaw. It's a coping mechanism, a way to protect themselves from their own deep-seated fears. This need to be the center of attention, to have the world revolve around them, becomes a way of building a shield against the fear of being insignificant. In fact, many narcissists don't even fully realize that this shield is necessary to protect them from a world that constantly challenges their sense of value. They build their lives around this false image, manipulating their environments to ensure that they remain in the spotlight. To maintain their sense of importance, they will often disregard or belittle others, treating people as tools or obstacles in their quest to be recognized. In the eyes of the narcissist, the world is a stage, and they are the main character. They surround themselves with admirers, and they often go to great lengths to create a persona that feeds their own ego. This obsession with self-image distorts their perception of relationships, interactions, and even love. The narcissist sees others as either sources of admiration or threats to their carefully crafted image. People are either praised for elevating the narcissist's status or discarded when they fail to uphold the narcissist's standards of validation. The problem with narcissism, however, is that it ultimately isolates the individual. The more they seek validation and external recognition, the emptier they feel inside. The deeper the need to be worshipped becomes, the further they push away true connections with others. At the core of narcissism is a vulnerability, of fear of being exposed as unworthy or imperfect. And yet, ironically, narcissism drives them to hide from the very truths that could lead to healing: their imperfection and their vulnerability. Their actions may give the appearance of strength, but in reality, they are fragile. In the face of this deeply ingrained behavior, God's response is not one of immediate condemnation, but one of understanding and patience. He sees the narcissist's actions not merely as a series of wrongdoings, but as a symptom of a deeper wound. God understands that beneath the self-centered actions lies a person who has been hurt, a person who is afraid. This is why his approach to the narcissist is not one of swift rejection, but of quiet, persistent love. He sees beyond the ego, beyond the pride, and into the soul of the person struggling with fear and insecurity. However, the narcissist is often blind to this divine perspective. They are so consumed with their own self-image that they can't fathom the possibility of someone seeing them differently. They resist the idea of being anything less than perfect in their own eyes, and so they reject the notion of needing help or redemption. To them, the idea of being saved or healed seems unnecessary, for they believe they are already whole. This is where the challenge lies. Narcissism doesn't only isolate them from others, it also isolates them from the very grace that could transform their lives. God's patience, though, is unending. He doesn't impose himself on the narcissist, but he offers a way out. He provides moments of quiet reflection, small whispers of truth, opportunities for growth. His love doesn't demand perfection, but invites transformation. He waits for the narcissist to recognize the futility of relying on their own self-made image and encourages them to seek a deeper sense of purpose and connection. It's not an easy path, because a narcissist's pride is a powerful force. But God doesn't force change upon anyone. He offers it freely to those willing to surrender their ego and allow his truth to illuminate their lives. It's a delicate process, and it requires a willingness to let go of the facade that the narcissist has built around themselves. But with time, God's grace can begin to break through the walls of self-deception, leading the individual to a place of true healing. To the narcissist, God's love may feel uncomfortable at first, too vulnerable, too humble, too real. But it's this very humility that can offer the narcissist the peace they've been seeking all along. For in a world where everything revolves around them, the moment they open their hearts to God's love, they begin to realize that true worth is not built on the admiration of others, but in the acknowledgement of one's own humanity and need for grace. God, in his infinite wisdom, understands that it's this very journey of self-discovery that will ultimately free the narcissist from their own prison of self-obsession. Through patience, divine guidance, and grace, God offers the narcissist a way to heal, to grow, and to truly connect with the world, not as an inflated, unapproachable figure, but as a humble and whole person. And in that moment, the narcissist finds the very thing they've always been seeking: true worth, not based on the approval of others, but grounded in the love and grace of a higher power. God's response to the narcissist is not one of immediate rejection or condemnation. Rather, it is one of profound patience and enduring willingness to extend mercy and understanding, even when it seems that the narcissist is beyond reach. Unlike the human tendency to judge quickly, especially when confronted by arrogance, pride, and a lack of empathy, God's approach is rooted in long-term love and care. His patience is not passive or permissive, but actively working to bring the narcissist to a place of realization and transformation. In the face of narcissism, God does not rush in with punishment or correction, but provides gentle guidance, open doors for change, quiet whispers of wisdom, and consistent opportunities to course correct. This divine patience is often misunderstood by those who expect God to act swiftly and decisively. Many people, especially those hurt by a narcissist's actions, can become frustrated with what seems to be divine inaction. But we must understand that God's timing is not bound by our need for immediate results. His patience is a reflection of his deep understanding of human nature. He knows that transformation, especially for someone entrenched in narcissism, is not a matter of simply pointing out flaws and expecting immediate change. The journey to humility, self-awareness, and love is a process, one that requires time, space, and the opportunity to make choices. God's patience is an invitation, a gentle beckoning for the narcissist to recognize that they are not alone in their struggle. It's an invitation to see that life is not about constant admiration from others, but about developing true inner peace and connection with the Creator. This patience does not stem from weakness, but from a deep, abiding strength that allows God to wait, to trust that the seeds of change will grow in their own time. The narcissist, lost in their own delusions, may not recognize these opportunities immediately. They might even dismiss them as inconsequential or irrelevant. But that doesn't stop God from extending them. Patience in this context is not the absence of action, but rather a deliberate action of giving space for the narcissist to awaken to a different reality. God understands that the narcissist's pride and ego are powerful barriers, ones that cannot simply be dismantled in a moment of confrontation. These barriers have been built over time, layer upon layer, and they often serve as a defense mechanism for deep-rooted insecurities. For many narcissists, admitting a need for change means confronting a deeply held belief that their value comes from perfection and dominance, and that admitting weakness or vulnerability would destroy their self-image. Therefore, God's patience is not just about waiting, It is about creating the conditions for transformation. God allows the narcissist to experience life as it truly is, a world full of other people, with needs, desires, and emotions that cannot be ignored. The narcissist may push others away, believing that they are better off alone, but in reality, the absence of connection will leave them feeling isolated and empty. God allows them to experience this loneliness, not as a form of punishment, but as a way of teaching them the importance of empathy, humility, and true connection. Through this patience, God also offers the narcissist a chance to experience his love in a way that defies their expectations. Narcissists often view love as something transactional, something they can manipulate, control, or extract from others. But God's love is different. It's not dependent on performance or the need for constant validation. It's unconditional, a love that is freely given, regardless of one's flaws or failings. For the narcissist, this kind of love can be unsettling because it requires a level of vulnerability and surrender that goes against everything they have been taught to believe. It forces them to face their own inadequacies and to realize that true worth does not come from what they can command from others, but from their inherent value as a creation of God. God's patience, then, is not just about giving the narcissist time. It is also about offering them repeated opportunities to let go of their pride and experience his love. Over time, the narcissist may begin to see that their life of constant manipulation and self-centeredness does not bring lasting fulfillment. They may begin to question the worth of their endless striving for external validation. The gradual realization that they are loved just as they are imperfect, flawed, and vulnerable can be a transformative moment. This love, however, is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. God's willingness to wait, to offer grace despite rejection, reflects his deep understanding of the human condition. For the narcissist, this patience becomes a mirror, one that reflects not only their flaws, but also the possibility of redemption. It is an invitation to stop hiding behind a false image and to begin to confront the truth of who they are. As they slowly begin to recognize their need for God's help, they find that this journey is one of healing rather than destruction. Through patience, God allows them the space to grapple with their own egos and discover the true peace that comes from letting go of the need to control everything and everyone around them. In this way, divine patience is not about waiting for the narcissist to change on their own terms. It's about giving them the room to encounter the reality of their choices, to face the consequences of a life built on ego, and to experience the transformative power of unconditional love. God's patience with the narcissist is an act of love itself, for it holds out the promise of redemption, of healing, and of a deeper relationship that is not based on power or control, but on mutual respect, humility, and grace. One of the most profound aspects of God's relationship with the narcissist is his willingness to allow them to experience the consequences of their actions. This is not punishment, but a form of divine discipline that serves as a means of teaching and transforming. While the narcissist might believe they can manipulate situations to their advantage or bend others to their will, God allows the natural consequences of their behavior to unfold in order to help them realize the effects of their choices. These consequences, however, are not designed to break the narcissist, but to open their eyes to the reality of their actions and to guide them toward a deeper understanding of the harm they've caused not only to others, but also to themselves. The narcissist often lives in a world where their sense of superiority prevents them from seeing the full scope of their impact on those around them. They might perceive others as mere tools to be used for their own gain, with no regard for their feelings, needs, or desires. This self-centered view blinds them to the reality that relationships are not one-sided, and that their behavior can, and often does, create pain and resentment. God, in his wisdom, understands that the only way the narcissist will come to terms with this truth is through direct experience. And so he allows them to face the consequences of their actions. At first, these consequences might seem insignificant to the narcissist. They might brush them off as minor inconveniences or misunderstandings, dismissing them as something that is beneath their attention. But as time goes on, the narcissist begins to encounter situations where their manipulative tactics no longer work. Relationships may begin to fray as people tire of being used, and the admiration they once commanded begins to wane. The narcissist, who has relied so heavily on their ability to control others, finds themselves increasingly isolated, with fewer people willing to indulge their inflated sense of self-importance. This isolation, which at first may be imperceptible, begins to deepen, leaving the narcissist to confront the reality of their actions. In this process, the narcissist is faced with a difficult choice. They can either continue in their self-destructive patterns, doubling down on their pride and ego, or they can choose to reflect on the consequences of their behavior and make a change. It is here, in this space of confrontation with their own actions, that the transformative potential of God's discipline becomes apparent. While the narcissist may resist at first, the consequences they face serve as a powerful catalyst for introspection. The very behavior that once brought them admiration and power now leads them into isolation and dissatisfaction. This shift forces them to confront the emptiness that lies beneath their self-created image. God's allowance of these consequences is not a form of abandonment, but a form of love. He does not intervene to stop the narcissist from experiencing the results of their choices, because he understands that it is through this very process that they can come to the truth about themselves. When the narcissist begins to feel the weight of their actions, when they begin to see how their manipulation and pride have caused others to retreat or withdraw, they are given a moment of clarity. This is the moment where the seeds of humility can be planted. It's a moment when the narcissist might, for the first time, truly recognize that their actions have consequences, and that those consequences affect not only the people around them, but their own sense of fulfillment and peace as well. For the narcissist, this can be a painful realization. The facade that they've spent so much time and energy building begins to crack. Their false sense of invincibility is shattered, and they are faced with the vulnerability that they've spent their entire life avoiding. The consequences of their actions reveal the emptiness of a life built on manipulation, deceit, and self-centeredness. But this is the very moment where God's grace can enter. For in this space of brokenness, there is an opportunity for healing and restoration. The narcissist has been allowed to experience the reality of their choices, and now they must decide whether to continue down the path of pride or to turn toward a path of humility and self-awareness. It is in the aftermath of these consequences that God's offer of grace becomes most apparent. The narcissist might feel alone, rejected, or undeserving of love, but it is precisely at this moment that God's love can shine brightest. God does not condemn the narcissist for their failures. Instead, he offers them a chance to reflect, to repent, and to begin again. He doesn't erase the consequences, but he provides a way through them, offering healing, restoration, and a new way of living. For the narcissist, the realization that their actions have led to consequences they cannot escape can be a powerful moment of clarity. But it is only when they recognize that God's grace is still available to them that true transformation can begin. God's discipline, though often uncomfortable, is an expression of his love. It is through facing the consequences of their behavior that the narcissist can be awakened to the truth of their own humanity. They can begin to see that they are not above the consequences of their actions, that they are not invincible, nor are they beyond redemption. It is through the humbling process of experiencing the natural fallout of their self-centeredness that the narcissist can come to understand the depth of their need for God's mercy. And in that understanding, they find the possibility of real change, of healing, and of living a life that is no longer dominated by pride, but instead guided by humility, love, and grace. The journey of the narcissist, though often filled with pride, self-deception, and an inflated sense of self-importance, is never one that is met with abandonment by God. One of the most profound aspects of God's relationship with narcissistic individuals is his unwavering commitment to offer restoration through grace, even when they seem far removed from any notion of humility or self-awareness. God's love does not cease in the face of arrogance, pride, or self-centeredness. In fact, his grace is available more abundantly in these very moments when the narcissist is most blinded by their ego and self-image. God's grace is not earned, it is given freely, irrespective of one's actions. This is a concept that can be incredibly difficult for a narcissist to understand. For someone who has spent a lifetime building their identity around their own worth and achievements, the idea that grace is not something that must be earned is a radical departure from everything they have known. To the narcissist, love and value are often transactional. They believe that in order to receive love, they must be admired, respected, and praised. In their world, validation is a currency, and the more they can command it from others, the more they feel secure in their identity. Yet God's grace offers something completely different. It offers love without expectation, forgiveness without condition, and redemption without regard for past mistakes. This unconditional love is difficult for the narcissist to accept, precisely because it asks them to surrender the very thing they have relied on for so long, their sense of self-sufficiency and control. Grace is not about fulfilling one's desires for admiration. It is about surrendering one's pride and recognizing that true worth comes not from external validation, but from the intrinsic value that comes from being loved by the Creator. God's grace does not require the narcissist to earn it or to change their behavior first. Instead, it offers them the opportunity to change, to humble themselves, and to receive love that does not depend on how much they give, but simply because they are worthy of it as His creation. For the narcissist, the moment they are able to grasp this truth is a life-altering one. They realize that God's grace is not a weakness, but a strength that offers them the freedom to finally let go of the armor of pride they have been wearing for so long. It allows them to take down the walls they built around themselves, to stop pretending to be something they are not, and to acknowledge their vulnerability and need for help. In doing so, they open the door to restoration, the possibility of not only being forgiven, but also being healed and transformed. Restoration through grace means that God sees the narcissist not for the mask they have put on, but for the person they truly are beneath the surface. It is a restoration that is deeply personal, as it speaks to the narcissist's worth as an individual independent of their ego, their accomplishments, or the recognition they receive from others. It means that God invites them to see themselves as He sees them, not as a figure built on the foundation of vanity and selfishness, but as a beloved child of God with inherent worth, dignity, and purpose. This restoration is not about giving the narcissist more power or control, but about shifting their focus from the pursuit of admiration to the pursuit of true love and connection with God and others. This grace is also a powerful tool for healing. The narcissist often carries within them deep wounds that they have hidden from the world, perhaps even from themselves. These wounds are what drive the behavior they exhibit. Their arrogance, self-centeredness, and manipulation are defense mechanisms that cover up feelings of insecurity, fear, and unhealed hurt. These wounds are often so painful that the narcissist believes the only way to protect themselves from further pain is to inflate their self-image and build barriers around their hearts. But in the face of God's grace, these barriers can begin to crumble. God's grace doesn't just forgive, it heals. It offers the narcissist the opportunity to address the pain they have been avoiding for so long and to begin the process of emotional and spiritual healing. In the restoration process, God's grace does not erase the consequences of the narcissist's past actions. There are still lessons to be learned, and the results of past behavior may take time to work through. However, God's grace offers the narcissist the hope of a new beginning and opportunity to move forward from their past mistakes with a clean slate, knowing that their future is not defined by their previous actions, but by the transformative power of God's love. This grace does not just change the individual's relationship with God, but also their relationships with others. As the narcissist begins to experience true love and humility, they learn to extend the same grace to others. They begin to see the value in relationships built on mutual respect, empathy, and vulnerability, not on manipulation or control. As the narcissist is restored, they are invited into a new way of living, a way that is no longer dominated by the need to prove themselves, to maintain a facade of perfection, or to be the center of attention. Restoration through grace offers them the freedom to live authentically, to embrace their imperfections, and to accept that true worth is not in being admired by others, but in being loved by God. It's a life free from the chains of ego and self-centeredness, where the narcissist is no longer consumed by the need for constant validation, but is able to find peace in knowing that they are enough just as they are. In the end, God's grace is the ultimate act of restoration. It invites the narcissist to step away from the illusions they have created and to find their true identity in God's love. It is a love that offers them not just forgiveness, but healing, freedom, and the chance to build relationships based on truth, humility, and love. The narcissist's journey, once defined by pride and self-deception, can become a journey of deep transformation and restoration, a journey that leads to a life filled with authentic love, humility, and peace.